And now we will turn to the state of affairs in Palestine and the role of young people in shaping their future, both as political organizers and nonviolent activists. This coming May, for the first time in 15 years, Palestinians are supposed to go to the polls. As we heard in President Abbas's remarks, the Palestinian people deserve democracy and good governance, yet there are many challenges. To better understand the internal dynamics of the Palestinian elections, we encourage you to check out the Palestinian Politics and Society content on our Videos on Demand page.
Now, to understand more about how the occupation and the current political situation in Palestine is impacting the lives of Palestinians, and in particular the young generation, we ask three impressive young Palestinian women leaders to share how they are working to organize and advocate for their people.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining J Street's Palestinian Political Organizing panel. My name is Rowan. I am the Director of New Story Leadership. And today with us, we have incredible women from Palestine that will be sharing about the hard work they are doing to challenge the status quo and get a seat at the political table. I want to start by asking our wonderful panelists to introduce themselves. Rana, can we start with you?
Everyone, my name is Rana Salman and I'm from Bethlehem, and I'm the Executive Director of Combatants for Peace in Palestine.
Nice.
Okay, hi everyone. My name and I'm 21 years old from Nablus, and I'm a volunteer for Zimam.
Thank you. So to kind of set the room, set the table, and set the conversation, I can say for myself as a Palestinian woman that's usually based in Washington, D.C., when I go into circles, rooms that are talking about Palestine, Israel, I'm often the only one, the only Palestinian, the only woman, the only under 30. And I want to ask you, Mace, you know, the world doesn't really hear much about the younger generation. Can you tell me about your work with Zimam? What are you doing mobilizing your own community?
The Palestinian issue itself not being like spoken from a youth perspective is bringing so much hopelessness to the younger generation, and basically that is what we do in Zimam, removing this status hopeless. We want the youth voice to be heard, and right now we are trying to do that due to the elections that are taking place very soon in Palestine. We firstly started with encouraging the youth to register after starting our online campaign, telling people how important the elections are, especially after 15 years of not having them. Now we are pressing on the importance of elections and what change we really want to see, and how elections might actually change the Palestinian narrative to the international community. And now, since the elections are really coming very close, we are just like encouraging the young people to go and vote according to the programs that each list and party are presenting, so that they can be like heard in the best ways, like in the best democratic way possible.
That's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, just a few months ago, the U.S. was going through the same process where there were young Americans knocking on doors doing exactly what you're doing. Rana, I want to switch it to you. First of all, congratulations. You're like a badass woman that just got promoted to being the new Palestinian Director for Combatants for Peace. I kind of want to shift it on women issues. Focusing on women, what do women bring into the table? What has it been like being their leader?
I actually joined Combatants for Peace last October, and I'm really honored to be the first woman that is taking this position, actually from the Palestinian side and also from the Israeli side. And I believe that women has a lot to offer to the peace table and to the negotiations, because women can actually make peace happen. They can make negotiations and they can make agreements be reached. They can also make peace last, because from previous examples we noticed that agreements that were involved with women, they lasted much longer than only men. So joining a movement that are all ex-fighters, that most of them are men, was actually challenging and inspiring, and I'm so proud of them to take such a step and such a jump, like to create a change on the ground. So thank you.
Rana, I wanna follow up with you on the work that you're doing with Combatants for Peace. How are the Palestinian Combatants for Peace serving, helping, protecting the most vulnerable communities in Palestine?
At Combatants for Peace, our activists are very involved with activism on the ground. We are trying to protect our communities from violence and protecting our Palestinian community for the rights to be in the land. I witnessed so many violations against human rights, including restrictions on the movement, checkpoints, home demolishings, land confiscation, a separation wall, no access to water or to education or to even healthcare, just recently with the COVID-19. So our activists are being very active on the ground, trying to help farmers, for example, to reach their lands. They are putting their lives at risk to help these people to reach their land, or even like escort them, shepherds, like just while they are grazing their sheep. So it's a lot of work and a lot of involvement, and they have been also involved in the Jordan Valley, for example, because recently there were lots of demolishings, not only for houses, but also tents of shepherds and Bedouin communities who has nothing actually except like their sheep and tents. And this violations have been happening for a while, and during like these times of pandemic, and even in the winter days, and a snowstorm, which is like really unfair during these times of uncertainty.
Thank you so much for shedding light into like the small details that go into play with the everyday experience for Palestinians, especially in Area C of the West Bank. I am also from Area C of the West Bank, and that uncertainty and fear of losing your home, losing your farming is almost constant in our lives. Mace, in Washington D.C., usually the conversation around Israel-Palestine boils down to one state, two state. It's also a common pickup line, actually. But I kind of want to ask you, beyond the one state, two state questions, what are the most pressing issues affecting your community?
Okay, so as a girl who lives in the West Bank, I would say that my like number one top issue is security, which is usually like spelled from the Israeli society, like since they consider it the most important issue for the Israelis. But let me tell you, it is like beyond important for the Palestinians themselves. So, for example, I live not very far from a military checkpoint, and a lot of times we are just confronting violence from soldiers, and nobody can really guarantee a safe living for me or for my family. So I believe security is a huge thing for us, and especially since we're having elections very soon, like a lot of people would be very delayed, like from going actually and voting, just because of the checkpoints and the very long way it might take them. I also believe that a very important issue that is really concerning the youth now is the economy itself, since we have to pay two taxes, one for the Israeli government and another for our government. And this is just making the hardships like bigger and more for any Palestinian young who is aspiring to create their startups or works. There is the water issue. We really need to take care of that because it's making life very hard on the very like human basis. We also have the borders issues. Like there are a lot. So like just to sum up, for me, security, economics, and borders. I believe whenever these issues are really like negotiated and talked about, then we can discuss about or a two-state solution.
So, Mace, I want to, dive into security because it is a term that's used a lot when framing the conflict, but I think it misses the Palestinian experiences with security. Are you saying that, as a Palestinian, do you feel safe?
I don't feel safe. I don't remember when was the last time I felt safe, because like whenever you're just basically commuting from a city to another, you are just threatened by that military checkpoint with soldiers who are might just like be hurt for no clear reason, and there is no guarantee that someone would save you or take care of your rights as a human being. And also in the West Bank, like we can see so many families confronting unjustified violence all the time, and there is basically no way to save them. So I don't feel safe, and a lot of families in the West Bank don't feel safe.
Yeah. I kind of want our audience to really sink that in. Not feeling safe, not feeling protected, not feeling heard. And now we're going to move into our final question in this wonderful conversation and much needed conversation. I think, Mace and Rana both alluded to the fact that what's missing for the Palestinian community, the younger generation, is empowerment, is having a chance to be heard, a platform to speak truth to power. So here we are today, three incredible women changing the status quo of their communities for a new future for their people. I want to ask both of you, what are three messages you would send to the three men controlling the region right now? Abbas, Benjamin Netanyahu, and President Biden. Rana, do you want to give your truth?
Sure. I would like to send a message to President Biden that you can't take decisions about this region if you never come here and see the injustices on the ground, like around you. Once you come and see this information and this knowledge, it would be difficult, like, to avoid what's really happening. And that moment you will take like a good decision that is brings peace to both people. Because once, as Martin Luther King said once you see the evil, or if you are part of the evil, if you ignore evil, you are accomplice to it. So I invite you to come here and hear the personal stories from everyday people, and hear about what they have to live every day and their difficult life and what's happening here. I think for President Abbas, I would just ask him to hold these elections that we are waiting for, and give the chance for younger generation and even for women to be part of the elections and part of this administration. For Bibi, I would say, I hope I don't see you in the fifth elections again. We need to have new changes on the ground and bring new blood to this solving the conflict. I hope.
Mace, what about you?
So for the Palestinian president, I would be saying that you are playing a huge role in making this election happen, and I really hope that you can feel responsible enough to give a chance for the younger generation to come and for the democratic process to succeed, basically. And for Benjamin Netanyahu, I'm not sure if I'm probably we would see him in the coming elections. So if he's still there, I would just really love if he can finally feel how important this conflict is, and how harmful hardships it's just on both people's life. And it is time to sit down with us and negotiate in order to make people's life easier if we are reaching any agreement at all. And for the American president, I would say that we really should be talking more about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and bring it back to the table, since it was an international case and now it's not getting much importance. We really need to be aware of the role that the American government is playing in this conflict. We really need to keep pressuring and putting that pressure on negotiations between Palestine and Israel, and to keep that pressure on the Palestinian leadership in order to make these elections happening, in order to reach a solution at the end of the day. So that's from my end.
Rana and Mace, thank you so much for bringing all your courage and your work and your energy to this conversation. A message to not only President Biden, Abbas, or Benjamin Netanyahu, but every single one watching today. Don't talk about us without us. If you want to play a part in the conversation or in the solution, we have to be included. And as the first African American Congresswoman said, they didn't give me a seat at the table, so I brought my folding chair. And we're here to tell you we're going to bring as many folding chairs as we can to ensure our voices are heard. Thank you.